In Washington, the relationship between the U.S. government and those responsible for the post-coup killings in Egypt appears on the surface to be strained.
Hi. Good, thanks. How are you? Going to the Four Seasons, please? Thanks.
We couldn't speak to anyone from the Egyptian government when we were in Cairo, but they're out in force here in D.C., trying to rebuild the relationship.
The military, in their own view, believed that they are the representatives of the Egyptian people.
And it seems to be working. At conferences like this one, the discussions are about how the U.S. can work with the new military-backed government.
It'll be 2 minutes.
And Egypt's representatives in the U.S. don't seem to be overly worried.
Ambassador Tawfiq, do you think U.S. military assistance to Egypt is going to be cut?
Well, I mean, currently the whole assistance is being reviewed by both sides, by the United States and by Egypt. The objective of this review is to revisit how much each side gains from this. And I'm confident that this will renew the commitment of both sides and will lay the foundation for even stronger cooperation in the future.
But if the aid is suspended or canceled, will Egypt reconsider the privileges that Americans get in Egypt, the overflight access, the privileged routes through the Suez Canal?
Again, this is not an issue that we are discussing right now, because we are confident that in the end, we will all move forward together.
Egypt gets more U.S. military aid than any country besides Israel. What makes Egypt so confident that the status quo isn't going to change? Perhaps the answer is to be found with the lobbyists that Egypt pays to represent their interests here in D.C.
Hi, Toby.
How are you?
Anjali Kamath.
Nice
How are
to meet
you?
you.
Nice
Come
to
on
meet
in.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I saw top Egyptian generals put their finger in the face of U.S. congressmen and senators when they visited Egypt and said, you know, we do 100 things for you and U.S. security every day that you don't even know about. So that was their, you know, that was the way they looked. They didn't do it in a nasty way.
For 5 years, former Democratic Congressman Toby Moffat's PLM group, a partnership between 3 lobbying firms, had a $1.1 million contract to represent the Egyptian government and keep the aid flowing.
But did the Egyptians ever think that aid would actually be cut?
Never. Never. No, I mean military aid, never.
Toby said the core of the relationship was a military one. I asked him if there was an insider who had the confidence of both militaries.
Hi, Skip Miner?
Yes.
Hey, this is Anjali from Fault Lines.
William Skip Miner is the Egyptian general's favorite lobbyist. He was a pilot and commander in the Navy and worked for the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Now, I think between the two militaries, there is a relationship, and as a voice said, it's based on our mutual interests. That hasn't changed. They're very close.
Do you think that military aid might be suspended?
I always cringe when people say we give them this money, because I never looked at it that way, because when I looked at what we benefited as an American military, we have money to contribute. And then they give us access. We still have access. You know, they haven't changed the nature of what they provide us. Why would we want to change what we provide them?
Now, I know that must, you know, really rub U.S. taxpayers the wrong way. Because you picture this, you know, Brinks truck with $1.3 billion, you know, driving up to the Defense Ministry of our money, and these guys don't view it as a favor. But they think it's a U.S. investment. It's a U.S., you know, investment in a partnership.
A partnership that is primarily between 2 defense establishments.
the money also goes to pay for training. And that, to me, is the biggest single benefit, is that all these Egyptian military guys you have coming over here going to school in American military schools. They're in our system learning. The other thing that's interesting is they make friends. And they're all feel free to give advice because they're classmates. So it's not just
General Sisi advice?
Well, I'm sure they are. Sisi's been to school here too, so I would imagine that he's done the same thing, keep contact with friends.
General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, today Egypt's strongman, spent a year at the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. His advisor was retired Colonel Stephen Garris.
I would assert for any conversation that a senior Department of Defense official has with a general from another country, if they've been through a senior service college, you can cut down a lot of barriers. So if you're talking to General Sisi, you know that he's been to the Hershey Park amusement park and taken his kids on a roller coaster and understands what a chili dog is.
All of that builds a personal relationship that can transcend political disagreement. You can operate at the speed of trust, and that is so important in a crisis.
There's a real belief in the military that personal friendships between Egyptian and American generals can handle any bumps in the road.
I would say that there's a very cautious optimism that it will work itself out.
What is that based on?
I think that's based on our, now this is a military view, based on our knowledge of the Egyptian military.
An in-depth knowledge that's been fine-tuned over 35 years. It seems to keep the Egyptian generals assured there will be little consequence for their domestic repression. It's backed up by commitments from the Pentagon to keep the military aid flowing.